Brand new rotor from my Ford Fusion. So it's not a premium rotor, it's OEM quality made by one of the bigger names in OEM components, AC Delco. The manufacturer claims that these are mill balanced, so we just take these and slap them on the vehicle, no questions asked, right? Here's an example of what mill balance looks like. And there are no such marks anywhere on this rotor. Now it could be that they got lucky and that after machining, this rotor did not require any milling to meet the specs, especially if they set a very low bar on those balance specs. And if they got lucky, they got twice lucky because the other rotor has no mill balance marks on it either. So this video is going to be a voyage of discovery. We're going to find out how good or how bad these rotors are out of the box. Inquiring minds want to know. There are dedicated balancing machines specially designed to balance brake rotors. What we do have is our HS-ACC-2P balancer that we built in gadgets number 156. Soft bearing balancers of this design are very versatile. Basically, if you can hold it and you can spin it, you can balance it. And that usually means a mandrel. So in my working years, I had access to a well-equipped machine shop where I could design and machine a mandrel and then proceed to balance the component. So nowadays in my DIY environment, I have to make do with what I have. So a threaded rod, a 3D printer, and a little bit of ingenuity, a mandrel can easily be made. As a matter of fact, if this technology had existed when I was working, I would have probably adapted it to some of the mandrels that we required. This is running out less than 3 thou on the OD and 3 thou on the face. I'll pick a number out of my ass, it would have to be within 5 thou. To be able to achieve that, when your 3D printer is assembled, you have to make sure that the horizontal bar is perfectly square to the vertical frame of the printer, or else you're going to end up with a bore that is not perpendicular to the face of the hub. And you'll get this run up. Even the bolts and the nuts here were 3D printed. The fasteners workbench in 3CAD makes real easy work of that. There is one thing. They weren't printed vertical like this because it doesn't create much strength. They were printed horizontally with a support and then chased because the thread's a bit rougher doing it that way, but it's a much stronger bolt. There's not much stress on these bolts anyways. It just keeps the face of the flange to the face of the rotor together. The weight is borne by the spigot. These adapters here are threaded and they're used throughout the build. I made it such that the spigot would fit the 6002 bearing, and 2 of them would sandwich a bearing. And then, so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, I designed every other component to be able to use the very same adapters. I do have adapters that would hold that photocell all the way up here. This could have been painted with quick drying flat black paint and then a piece of reflective tape to get the reference. But I kind of like this holder, and this reference plate would come in handy on other jobs where the component has an interrupted face, such as fans or boat propellers. Before we proceed to spin this, we have to address these 2 holes here. They are not 180 degrees apart. And in service, this volume would be filled with the head of a countersink screw. Now I don't have on hand an 8mm countersink screw that I could cut the head off and try to secure it in here, which would be kind of tricky anyways. I want to use a different approach where I learn what this volume of metal would represent and then try to replicate it here. Again, the fasteners workbench in FreeCAD makes easy work of this. An M8 countersink screw is easily drawn. I can make the length near 0 and end up with just the head. And with the FC Info macro, I can calculate what the weight of that volume is. And that is 3.3 grams. In this business, it's always about weight times radius. So 3.3 grams here at 2¼ inch radius would be the same as 1.9 grams at 4-inch radius. And these slide into the ribs really nice, and centrifugal force will keep them in there. So I've got the 2 put in. And I'll be using the same concept with the main trial weights. These are longer, they weigh about 4 grams. They're made out of a coat hanger wire. That's not supposed to happen. There's definitely some static unbalance on here. Let's have a look at that. One of the most difficult things to balance on a two-plane balancer is a single plane narrow rotor like this, especially if the center of gravity is right in the center in between the stands. So not only are we going to be focused on trying to reduce the amplitude, where it's calling for some weight here for the green, which is a left plane at 130 degrees, but at the very same time, we're going to be trying to shift it over. We're trying to get this yellow dip and this green hump to eventually line up with each other. So I'm going to put some weight, but I won't put it at 130. I'm going to, 60. And that will shift it, and we'll take another look at it then. So 0, that would be 90. Come back a little bit. We're indexed at 60 degrees, and it calls for weight in line with the cell. And I'll put 2 of these in there. %, duty cycle. We're going a little over 600 RPM here. Stop recording. Slow this down. And we'll have a look at that. So again, calling for weight here at 125, but I still want to do some shifting. So I'm going to put that weight at 60 degrees again. Again, 0 degrees. Down here is 60. I'll put it right beside the other ones. 2 more, 4 rounds. We are making some progress with that shifting. And it's calling for weight here at 102 degrees. We're going to cheat a little bit to accomplish the shift at the same time, I'm going to go like 50 degrees. This is a lot like when you're shooting pool. You're trying to make the shot, but be in position for the next play. And I'm going to put 2 more of these 4-ounce weights. 0, 45, 50. Have a look at this. Now see how we made progress? We're perfectly aligned with the goal that was trying to achieve. So now we're going to put the overlay and remove the weight right where it calls for. We're lined up here. And that weight is at 90 degrees. I'm going to put 1, 0, 90. Put a weight right in line with the photocell. Right there. The amplitude is decreasing, so that's good news. But we're also starting to have the green wave move this way a little bit off of what the yellow one is. So we got to get it back on track. We're going to be adding weight, not at the 82 that's calling for, maybe at 100. I'm going to put 1, 0, 90, 100. Put a weight right there. See how we've managed to achieve it? They're exactly opposite each other with the same amplitude. We've got our single plane balance. Single plane balancing on a 2-plane soft bearing balancer like this is deceptively difficult. If you're interested in taking up this work, practice on 2-plane balancing with the planes widely separated at first. Get that under your belt before trying something as tricky as this. For further confirmation that we've balanced this, you remember that static that was in here? That's gone. So let's mark the weight. I've got it right down here at the bottom. I will take those off and weigh them. So there were 7 pieces here, and they sat at an effective 4.5-inch radius. let's weigh them and figure out how many gram inches that we had. That's a lot. 30.8 grams. 30.8 grams times 4.5 inch radius equals 138 gram inches of unbalance here. If we take a G40 grade, which is, the bar is very low on that, but that's kind of what they're targeting for wheels. The maximum allowable unbalance for a rotor that weighs 19 pounds, and we're assuming a service RPM of 1100 RPM, it would be 118 gram inches. So they're slightly over here. To put things in perspective, 30 grams is a little over 1 ounce. I did the other rotor off camera. It's about half of this. So not good, but not as bad as this. So is this a problem? Well, maybe, maybe not. What if you had a tire that was also balanced at G40, maybe with some poor workmanship thrown in, and the residual heavy side ended up just by chance in line with the residual heavy side of this rotor? I think that you'd have a problem. You might feel that. And you'd have a real head scratcher because you say, I got brand new rotors and I knew that I just had my tires balanced. And yet there's still some shaking going on. If by chance the tire was 180 degrees with its heavy spot to this one, then they will both cancel out, right? So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. That's all I got. Take care.